What we are starting to see in terms of the industry and the trends is that, with automation and AI, a lot of hard skills can be displaced very easily. But it is the soft skills that with like leadership, teamwork, communication, that will keep humans competitive.
That's true.
In the job market. And when we look in the education system, we are still very much focused on the grades, on the hard skills.
Felix is a student entrepreneur with an aim to create a positive impact. He founded Skilio, an AI-powered digital soft skills portfolio. They empower education institutions to capture and track soft skills development of their students in school activities. He is also the Global Student Entrepreneur Award Singapore winner, along with many other accolades. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Quest Conversations, and today I'm here with Felix from Skilio.
Hi everyone.
Okay, tell them more about yourself and what you do.
So I'm Felix, I'm the founder and CEO of Skilio. Skilio, we are an AI-powered soft skills development platform. And I think for us, we are an edtech solution. So we work closely with schools in the region to help them track soft skills of their students. Yeah, so happy to be here, excited to share a bit more about our journey.
Yeah, I've always heard about you guys, but it's my first time actually meeting you in person. I've heard your name around school and people have been talking about Skilio quite a fair bit. So I want to find out from you, what exactly is your founding story? How did you first identify this gap in the market, which is soft skills?
Yeah, so I think for me, to have the disclaimer, right? I'm a student founder. So I started actually when I was 17 in the youth training and development space. I was doing a lot of coaching and facilitation work with various training companies. So I taught students leadership. I taught students how to, entrepreneurship and so on. And I think that became my calling. Education became my calling since then. And I think for me, when I actually came out from NS, I went to intern as a teacher in a secondary school. And I realized just how hard is it to make a change within the system. So there was so much red tapes and bureaucracy. And I decided to say, hey, can I do something or build something, right, to scale up the kind of impact that I can do within the education system. And I think that's where, because of my work in the youth facilitation space, I was thinking, with all of these different programs that the schools are running, how do we help students track their soft skills across these multiple activities? And I think that's where it all started. So I started in 2018. And that was, I think, my year one in NUS. And then slowly, I think I got my co-founding team together because of we sort of aligned in terms of our vision.
So they're all from school as well? You met them through school?
Yeah, so I met my co-founder Zihui from arts orientation camp.
Wow! Of all places, from orientation camp. People go to orientation camp to have fun, make friends, and you meet co-founders there. That is, wow, it's a fate.
Yeah, I was quite lucky because we are in the same orientation group.
Yes.
Right? And back then, she was also doing a lot of youth facilitation work before uni started. So I think we saw that kind of alignment in terms of what we foresee in terms of the education space in the future. And she is doing psychology, which is also just a very nice match to what we are trying to do. And I met my CTO, Dodi, when I was doing my training work with Reactor. So he was one of my facilitator, and we were like, he's actually, at that point in time, he was actually still studying for his A-levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
very, very young.
And he learned how to do, and he was basically learning coding back then, when he should be studying for A-levels. So I'm like, wow, this guy is interesting. So that's why I decided to bring him on as well.
Very interesting story of all places, right? Okay, awesome. So how did you, validate that the market has such demand for this soft skills upgrading?
Yeah, I think there were a few factors, right? We were looking around and asking teachers and a lot of students and employers as well, what is one thing that will help students to be future ready? And I think a lot of times it boils down to the fact of, can the student practice a skill set, or can a student actually deliver the kind of work that they are demanded of them in the future? And what we are starting to see in terms of the industry and the trends is that, with automation and AI, a lot of hard skills can be displaced very easily. But it is the soft skills that with leadership, teamwork, communication, that will keep humans competitive.
That's true.
In the job market. And when we look in the education system, we are still very much focused on the grades, on the hard skills. And schools have been trying to, I guess, get students to be holistic.
CCAs,
yes,
all that,
volunteering and things like that. But they don't have a way to help students track some of these skills as they're going through all these different CCAs and so on. I think that's where we sort of found that gap and decided to say, hey, can we build something for them?
And that's exactly the next thing I want to ask you, right? Which is, academias, especially in Asia, very like metric driven, from your GCA levels results to CCA points. Everything has a number attached to it to show, okay, this student is better than the other student. This person should get into this school instead of the other, right? So, and soft skill is something that, I wouldn't intuitively think as a metric driven. It's very intangible. You can't put a score to, okay, you're this good at NLP, something like that, which is neuro-linguistic program. So, and then when children pursue all these kind of enrichment courses or CCAs, right, besides proving to the kids that, okay, these are some of the milestones that you achieve, you just have to show parents, you have to show your teachers, your principals. So there are so many stakeholders to answer to, and everybody look at numbers when it comes to scores in academias, right? So how does Skilio actually quantify and display all these results?
Yeah. So I think when we started designing Skilio, we thought of it not as an assessment tool, but rather more as a personal development platform, right? And we didn't pit like a student A versus student B, how well this student A versus student B, right? But we're more of looking at a student's past and their current self and their future self. And when we actually how we actually quantify soft skills was actually to look at behaviors that the students have demonstrated. So let's say, I'm going through my volunteering activity. I write down or I journal down some of my learnings that I have learned, right, from maybe volunteering at the old folks' home. And from all of their reflections and feedback that they receive from their teachers or from their peers, we actually pick out soft skills characteristics or behaviors in this sense. And we sort of believe in the idea of habit forming. And habit forming is the whole idea of, when you practice a certain behavior many times, it becomes something that is innate to you. So we basically, when we pick out some of these actions from their reflections and feedback, we sort of showcase to them, hey, when you're actually practicing this action, you're actually displaying these soft skills.
I see. So you're kind of like sort of translating, okay, these are some of the activities that the student has done, and these are the skill that has been honed or are in training progress, right? Okay, and that in a sense, is it quantified in any way that you can show parents or teachers? Like, how do the teachers or parents know that, okay, my kid is improving? Yeah,
so we basically use it as a frequency tool. So for example, if I take initiative in this project, and if I can showcase that I've taken initiative for the many other projects that I've done, it basically shows an uptrend in development. And I think for us, first step is to make students aware about the actions that they've taken. The second step is to show them that if you keep practicing some of these skill sets across different activities, you are even able to show the growth. So right now, I would say the numbers are still in terms of like a frequency counter.
I see. Okay, frequency counter. One of the startups I met last week, right, is a very interesting edtech startup. So instead of quantifying how many things you got right, they actually assess based on your answers and your assessment, right? These are the things that you lack. These are the mistakes that you frequently make the most, and these are then the areas that you have to repeat to improve that area. Is that something that Skilio has done or is planning to do down the road?
Yeah, so I think this whole idea of adaptive learning and personalized learning is something that is very, very on the uptrend, I would say, right? Because I think that's where technology can sort of plug in the gap for education, right, through edtech. I think for us, how we are seeing it as more of like strengths-based and also improving areas of like blind spots. And for us right now, we have a very simple way to basically allow students to know their strengths, and we sort of pinpoint them to certain actions and behaviors that they can take to, say, for example, improve on their strengths. And for that, we also list down their blind spots, and from there, how can they take action to improve their blind spots? So we do have that, feedback loop, but we are trying to make it more personalized because right now, it is like very scrappy in the sense that, we have some decision tree and say, hey, if you're here, this is what you should do, right? I think in the future, we are trying to make it more personalized with AI involved as well.
Awesome. And of course, Skilio works with clients which are largely, your academic institutions, your education hubs, right? Including the likes of Anglican High, Great Academy, Junior Achievement Singapore. So for all the B2B founders out there listening to this, right, what was the process of acquiring these customers and what were some of their concerns?
Yeah, so I think there are so many challenges, right? Especially if you are a B2B founder. I think one of the biggest one is sales cycle, right? Being able to understand the sales cycle, for the industry you're in. So for us in education, the sales cycle was even longer because schools technically they don't have an incentive to change,
That's
right? Because if they're government funded, they just have to hit their usual KPI. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for some of the more forward-looking schools, that's where they try to see how can I change and tweak my curriculum. Mm-hmm. But in that kind of sense, usually the sales cycle is something that I think all B2B founders should take note of. And how does that correspond with your own cash flow, right? Because a lot of times, even after you sign a deal, maybe 4-6 months you take to negotiate a deal, and which is really long. Yeah, which is really long, right? And once you sort of convert them into a paying client, you have another 1 month or net 30 days credit.
Next 60.
Yeah, correct. And that's when the money will come in.
Okay.
Right. And hopefully they don't churn, right? Because and then that will sort of continue. So in essence, sales cycle and sort of how you correspond it with your cash flow is actually very important. I think secondly is also about credibility, right? Especially, if you are working with government institutions or agencies, and you're trying to sell them a SaaS solution or you're trying to sell them an enterprise solution. A lot of times, because as startups, credibility is something that you may not have at the start.
Especially if it's your first few clients that you're trying to acquire.
Definitely.
So how do you gain that credibility then in your early days?
I think for us, it's mainly through small pilots. So we, instead of, there was this, what I like to call the Dropbox strategy, right? Instead of, one shot signing up the whole organization, can I just look for a small department, right, of a few people, maybe let them try it out for free, or, give them something that, super discounted pricing, right, that they can try and experience the benefit of your solution. And hopefully then they sort of, spread to another team, spread to another department. And that's how I guess you're sort of able to conquer the entire organization. Because I think that's very important because especially when you're looking at sales cycle, a lot of times, big organizations don't dare to take the leap of faith to try something new if they don't see that it's working.
Yes, or testimonials from a very credible brand before that.
Yeah.
I think this is great advice for anyone who's looking to do B2B services, especially SaaS, or especially workforce management and other startups that are relevant for internal usage of a company. I think this is a really great strategy to just go like a small pilot to a certain department first, and that is probably a shorter sales cycle or even a free pilot for them. And then after that, once it's validated enough, you get some great testimonials from the employees or the client, the people who are using it. Then you can scale up from there. That's awesome. That's really, really good advice. Okay, now I want to tune the conversation to yourself. Okay, so something I've always wanted to ask you, right, is what exactly is being a student founder like exactly? Because I myself have started something in say year 2 of business school, and it was so difficult trying to handle everything. It was like a madness, and eventually I didn't follow through with it during COVID because things didn't work out. But for yourself, how in the world are you handling, especially when you started in 2018, which is year 1 of school? Yeah,
I don't think there's handling, right? I think it's more of sacrificing.
Yes.
So there's no balance, right? They always say find a balance, so make sure you have time for everything. But I don't think there is such a thing if you're looking to start something. And especially as a student founder, right? I think you need to question what's the sacrifice that you're willing to make. So for myself, I told myself that, I don't need to get a CAP 5.0. Right, I don't have to get my A+. As long as I get my B+ and above, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Right, and then that's how I plan my time around. That's how I make my decision to say, hey, I'm going to squeeze all my lessons to Monday to Tuesday, right? And then 3, 4, 5, I can work on Skilio.
That's awesome. And besides time commitment wise, right, as a student founder, coming from a VC perspective, when we look at say the directors and the founders, we also look at credibility and also the person's background, right? So how do you convince potential investors or stakeholders the academic institutions, right, that you are someone that you can trust? But there are also pros and cons to it, right? Like the pros could be people would say, okay, student founders are the most driven, huge hunger, right? Least opportunity cost. And the cons could be, maybe the lack of experience. So how do you package yourself and reach out to, say, your potential investors or stakeholders?
Yeah, so I think for us, that's definitely the flip side of every student founder. Whether you're a founder that you leave mid-career and do something, there is also pros and cons to that decision, right? I think for us, we faced a couple of challenges when we first started. Number one was basically credibility. So when we were speaking to our clients, they were saying, "Are you a student project? Are you going to close down in 6 months? And then how am I going to continue using your service?" and things like that.
That's true. Because the thing is, there are so many entrepreneurship modules with one-off projects, but most of them will end up dying. So they don't want a startup idea or project to just like poof after 6 months, right? Yeah.
Correct. And I think for us to then showcase to them that we are serious about what we did was a lot of preparation, right? So making sure that we cover things from start to end, and to show them that we are here for a long haul. So we incorporated our company. We show them that we are serious and that we're able to follow through with some of the things that we have. We haven't raised a round yet, so I wouldn't comment on the part of presenting the VCs or investors. But the general consensus or what I'm hearing around is that usually as student founders, it is a little bit harder to raise money from VCs or angels, because at the end of the day, they are putting in money to back the idea and back the team, right?
Yes, usually the team yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Correct. And if you are still studying, to them it is a risk. Right, if they can put money in Team A versus Team B, Team B being someone who's already full-time founder, Team A being a student founder, to them the ROI is much better, or the risk is much lesser for a team that is full-time on it. So I think for us, it's then juggling those kind of intricacies. I think for us right now, when we're about to go to fundraise, we are pitching on the idea that, we are going to graduate in 6 months' time, right? And we're using this money for then when we are graduating, that full-time runway, right? And then showing them traction that, even when we're studying, we are able to get this amount of clients and things like that.
So imagine the possibilities when all of you are doing this full-time, right? It could scale so much bigger. And ultimately, I think it's your rapport with angel investors or VCs. If someone really sees the fire in you and someone really believes in you, whatever the idea is, I'm sure even if you're a part-time, full-time student, they'll still invest in you. That's great. So, and even as a young founder yourself, you have racked out a fair bit of achievements. Like my entire Google page search was filled with all the things that you have done. Okay, and let's share with our audience, including the Singapore chapter of Global Student Entrepreneur Award organized by Entrepreneurs Organization, and that's in 2020. And you also represented Singapore in the global finals of Startup World Championship in Montreal. And you're also the silver awardee of the National Youth Entrepreneur Awards, organized by Action Community for Entrepreneurship, or rather ACE. So what do all these achievements and more actually mean to you?
I think all of this, I feel it is something that I sort of credited back to my team, right, for where we are today. And I think in a more practical sense, right, all of this is actually to help us boost credibility. Because as a student founder, that was really one of the biggest challenge that we had to overcome. Right? And I guess it helped a lot because, for example, ACE, when we won the award, we sort of got like an interview slot on radio, right? And when we speak to our clients, they were like, "Oh, are you guys the guys from the radio sharing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I think that helped us to, this guy
transfer of trust in some way,
Correct. And it helped us to also basically build rapport easily with the clients. So I wouldn't say that it is like a personal glory kind of thing that I'm going for all of this, but in a more practical sense, it's really to help us increase the credibility and I guess branding, right, for people to know the message and the mission of what we are trying to do.
And that's especially crucial when you're speaking to big partners, right? Coming from a student standpoint, I think all these additional ammunition to go out there for a pitch. And okay, so I read in another interview, right, that you mentioned adaptability is one of the key skills needed as an entrepreneur, right? So given that the virtual climate education and training in 2020 proved quite challenging for many more traditional academia, right? How did Skilio actually adapt and maybe even thrive in this climate?
Yeah, so I think COVID has been a very a huge disruptor of many industries, but especially education, right? Because education has been something that has not changed for many, many years. And a lot of the practices are still dated to, the industrial age. And I think for us, when COVID came, it sort of broke down a lot of the, barriers and assumptions that a lot of educators have. So, for example, back then before COVID, when we were actually running our software for some of our clients, we went down to the school to onboard every student, right, so that they can use it in class. And when COVID hit, we actually sort of adapted and sort of moved everything online, and we sort of repositioned to say that this is like a remote learning kind of solution, right? That schools can use to track students' learning in different activities remotely. And I mean, that in itself does help us in terms of getting more traction, getting more demo calls with our clients and things like that. And I think really being an entrepreneur, adaptability is something that I hold strongly to, because there are just so many unknowns, right?
Circumstances are always changing, especially now, right? And especially if you're somewhat in the tech space as well, because you're AI driven, you're tech driven as well. So and that landscape is just changing. Like 1 week can be like 1 year in a traditional industry. So that's extremely crucial.
Yeah, and I think I honestly say we haven't really found product market fit, right? But and being adaptable to signals from the market, from signals from your customers, that helped a lot in trying to make sure that we are working our way towards product market fit as well.
I see. Okay. So what are your next few steps? Or are you looking at any other markets or any other sectors that you're targeting?
Yeah,
what's next for you?
I think a very good question, right? I think for us, we see Singapore as a base to build up from, and eventually we are looking at the higher ed education space in the region, and especially in developed countries, so like your US, your UK, right? Because that's where education system has reached a certain stagnation point, where because in the past few years they have been always looking at hard skills, right?
Yes.
And the next phase of evolution in the education system is how do we help every student to be successful and thriving in the kind of AI and automation-led kind of future. And I think, and our hypothesis, right, is that soft skills will be the answer. And I think where we want to come in is to help all these different schools to move towards that kind of education.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because in your developing countries, perhaps, right, there's still quite a bit of gap in achieving, say, your technical knowledge, like in sciences, maths, English, and other languages, right? So that is still top priority for most schools and students and even parents. And then once you have mastered that level, which is, say, in Singapore, where the education system has really boasted that so strongly, and every student is quite well equipped with your basic science, math, and English skill, right? And I think soft skill is really the next step to go to really have a very holistic, well-rounded skill that is very employable also across all industries.
Yep.
And I think the skills that people learn from Skilio, right, is really plug and play into any industry. It's not just for your engineers, your sales, and all that.
Definitely, and I think for how we foresee actually humans in the workforce in the future is that you won't be really stuck to a position or a job for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You will be moving around, you will be maybe landing yourself in a gig job here and there.
Yes.
And the key skill or the transferable skills is really the soft skills, right? And having hard skills or technical skills will be one step. It will be that kind of depth. Right, but the soft skills will be your breadth, right? That allows you to go and sort of transit across different industries.
Yeah, I like the point where you mentioned also about gig economy, which is really all the rage right now, especially in Philippines, Vietnam, and your developing nations, especially since 2020. And I think this will help people transfer skills from gig to gig.
Yeah.
And okay, this is off the records, right? But you mentioned that, okay, this will, we talked about how all these soft skills will help them thrive in different careers across like a huge breadth, right? Do you see, soft skills as one of the metrics where employers will start to assess more beyond your usual one-to-one interview with managers?
Yeah.
Because now the hiring interview, your hiring processes are like your case studies, your like IQ tests, all that. So how do you see that changing?
Definitely, I think right now, if you are seeing, most employers are already trying to look beyond grades as the only way to measure ability.
Yeah, like personality test.
Yeah. So personality test, your situational judgment test when you're doing case studies, all of this, right, is with one purpose in mind, is to sort of decipher your qualities and behaviors outside of your grades and your academics.
Yes.
And we are already seeing that kind of change, with Pymetrics, the game-based, neural-based kind of assessment tool. You have your different personality tests that they ask you to take, like MBTI, StrengthsFinder, and so on.
Yes.
So we do see that increasingly HR will start to look at alternative assessments as a way to understand whether there's a fit between the people that they are trying to bring into the company and their company culture.
Okay. Yeah, I started observing all these as well. It's to some people's advantage for those people who are quite well-rounded and quite experienced in their everyday lives, to some people's detriment if this completely throws them off and they stick more to their books and instead of exposing themselves to all these soft skills that other people are holding as well. Okay, and my last few questions is what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think to your earlier point, right? I just wanted to add on that that it might be like detriment to some students or people looking for jobs that they may not be able to pass some of this assessment. But at the end of the day, I think the core fundamental is that soft skills can be developed and can be nurtured, right? So you shouldn't see it as, oh wow, I'm not a good leader, I'm not a good communicator, and you just give up and
or if you feel that this personality test is a roadblock already, I think it's not at all. Right?
Definitely not. And I think it is something that as a student or as a young working professional, you are able to nurture and develop along the way. I think to your second question about what advice I would give to young entrepreneurs, I would say to just do it. Right? I mean, I say this in all my interviews and panels because I really believe that a lot of times you just need to take action. And you wouldn't have it all figured out. I think when we started, we didn't know how to measure soft skills. We're like, okay, we should measure soft skills, right? But how?
Exactly, back to the questions that we were discussing just now, yes.
Yeah, and I think for us, it was just that kind of conviction that we need to solve this problem. And I think we just say that, hey, let's try to do something and take that first step. And naturally, the next few steps will start to show as you take your first step. So I would say that, to any aspiring entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs, whatsoever, just take the action, take that first step and just do it.
Yeah, you can't just be stuck at ideating, which is so easy. Everybody can have the same ideas, same brilliant ideas, but who's going to take the bold risk, right? To make the sacrifices to see it through.
Yeah.
I think like really executing and also sustaining, okay? Not just, in corporate company, kickstart, but I would say going there for the long run, I think that's really the toughest part of any entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so where can people find you to learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can hit me out on LinkedIn. And we are also having we're opening our beta access to students for free. So you can check us out on tinyurl.com/Skilio beta, right?
Okay. Awesome. So, and then they can sign up for a beta test.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they get a free access to Skilio and you can use it to build their portfolio.
I see. And what can people experience once they're inside Skilio's platform?
Yeah. So we basically allow every student to sort of build up their soft skills portfolio based on the different activities that they're doing in school, and allow them to track it over the course of their schooling journey.
I see. Okay. And can they bring, all these metrics and the dashboard of the things that they have been training for to interviews or to present to somebody?
Yeah. So the profile that they have on the portfolio that they have is actually public. So it is like a LinkedIn, but for your soft skills. And then I think we are trying to sort of like formalize it and talking to a few HR partners to see whether they can sort of recognize that as well.
I see. That is so awesome. Okay. So check it out at that link, which is
tinyurl.com/Skilio beta.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Felix, for your time today. I think we learned quite a fair bit of things on the dynamic changes of soft skills demand and how that affects students as well as HR processes as well. And you yourself, how you become adaptable and also making it as a student founder and gaining that credibility also. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Vanessa and thank you for listening. This podcast is produced by Quest Ventures, top venture capital fund in Asia. in collaboration with Pixel, the innovation hub of Infocom Media Development Authority. Follow us for more exciting episodes to come and stay in touch with us or find out more about Quest Ventures investment syndicates at questventures.com. Till next time.